اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. On this day we shall seal their mouths. Their hands will speak to us, and their legs will testify to what they earned. In this verse of the Qur'Ānic Gems, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala portrays one of the scenes of the day of Qiyamah. This verse appears in Surah Yasin, and hence the reason for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam advising the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum and the Ummah at large to recite this surah in the morning and in the evening, so that we are reminded about the day of Qiyamah. There are many virtues that have been mentioned in regard to Surah Yasin. Some are authentic and have a sound chain of narration, while others have a weak chain of narration. However, they are acceptable and tolerable in the field of fada'il, in the science of hadith. In one narration it appears that Sayyiduna Anas bin Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, everything has a heart, and the heart of the Quran is Surah Yasin. And the reward for reciting Surah Yasin is the reward equivalent to reciting the Qur'Ānic Gems 10 times. It is mentioned that whoever recites the Qur'Ānic Gems in the morning or in the beginning of the day, his needs will be fulfilled. This is also a hadith narrated by Ata bin Rabah, or Ata ibn Abi Rabah radiyallahu ta'ala an. In another narration it appears that whoever recites Surah Yasin for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his past sins will be forgiven. And in another narration it appears that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam advised Surah Yasin to be recited upon the dead, meaning those that are about to pass away, or also for those that have passed away and left this world. So, keeping in mind these various virtues, the first lesson and advice for today is that let us recite Surah Yasin every morning, and if possible every evening as well. In one narration it appears whoever recites Surah Yasin in the evening with sincerity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive him on that particular night. So we try to make an effort to recite and memorize Surah Yasin. It appears in certain narrations as well that it was the desire of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam that every ummati, every follower of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam's heart should have Surah Yasin in it, meaning a person should make an effort to memorize Surah Yasin. Going back to this verse of the Quran that portrays one of the scenes of the day of Qiyamah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الْيَوْمَ نَخْتِمُ عَلَىٰ أَفْوَاهِهِمْ. The losers, those that will be questioned in regard to their actions and what they had done in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will seal their mouths in order to prove against them that their own limbs and body parts will testify against them on the day of Qiyamah in regard to what they had done in this world, in a case that they lie. So a person won't be given the opportunity to lie on the day of Qiyamah. There is no lying, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself knows everything and is aware of everything, exactly how, when it occurred, and what were the words or what were the actions that had happened in this world. So in this verse of the Qur'Ānic Gems, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about a person's body parts. He says, وَتُكَلِّمُنَا أَيْدِيهِمْ. A person's hands are going to speak on the day of Qiyamah, and a person's legs will testify on the day of Qiyamah in regard to what a person had carried out and done in this world. In another place of the Qur'Ānic Gems, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes that this will be the condition of the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then on that day, when they will be flung into the fire of Jahannam, حتى إذا ما جاءوها شهد عليهم سمعهم وأبصارهم وجلودهم بما كانوا يعملون. That their ears, their eyes and their skin will all testify against them on the day of Qiyamah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and save us from such a scene, and make us from those that will be granted entry into paradise without reckoning, and given their book of deeds in their right hand. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the ability to speak with our tongue. So just the way He alone has the power to give the ability to speak to the tongue, He on the day of Qiyamah has the full right and has the power to give our hands, our limbs, our legs, and every other part of our body the ability to speak against us or to speak for us on the day of Qiyamah. This question will be posed on the day of Qiyamah by the enemies of Allah. That how come, oh you my skin, my hands, how are you speaking? Whereas in the world you weren't able to speak, only my tongue would speak, only my heart would be able to calculate what I want to say, and my brain would be able to, with its mechanism and my thoughts, etc., were allowing me to think, and I would present my thoughts and my calculations from my heart, etc., to be spoken out. How come today you are able to speak? So they will reply, أنطقنا الله الذي أنطق كل شيء. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that being who has given the ability of speech to every other thing, has given us the ability to speak today. Hence we will testify against you. And remember, وَهُوَ خَلَقَكُمْ أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ. He is the same being who had created you from the beginning. وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. And unto Him are you being returned. So on the day of Qiyamah, the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who defy the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the disobedient servants, the non-Muslims, the kuffar, etc., all of them will be amongst these people. So Surah Yasin is reminding us of this day, and Surah Yasin reminds us that Shaitan is our enemy and we should fight him no matter what the condition and situation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of the conversation with the enemies in Surah Yasin as well, that will take place on the day of Qiyamah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to them that Shaitan was your enemy and you were sent into this world, وَأَنِ اعْبُدُونِ, that you should worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And that is the straight path, and that is what you are required to do. هَذَا صِرَاطٌ مُسْتَقِيمٌ. So on the day of Qiyamah, when these conversations will be taking place with the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the other group of people will be sent into Jannah with happiness and smiles, these will be suffering on the other hand. May Allah ta'ala make us from those that will be smiling, those that will be granted success and happiness on the day of Qiyamah, those that will be granted entry into paradise without reckoning as well. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen.